Welcome everyone to the Hodiamont Greenway Virtual Open House. Thanks for joining. My name is Shaughnessy Daniels. I'm the Director of Civic Engagement with Great Rivers Greenway. And before we get officially started, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Darby Latham from Vector Communications for just a few housekeeping items.
Yes. As you all are aware, this webinar is on Zoom. The session is being recorded, and you will only be able to see the presenters and panelists, which is the GRG team. So we can present to you guys without any interruptions. Um, if you'd like to ask a question at any point, please use the Q&A box. Yes, thank you. And so again, how it works is at the bottom of your screen, if you hover down there, you'll see a black Zoom control bar. There you'll see the Q&A button, which is circled here in yellow. Just click that, type your question, and then hit send. We'll see your question and we will make sure it is asked during the Q&A portion. And that just helps us stay organized and make sure we don't miss anything. Go ahead, Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Darby. Okay, let's get started. So the purpose of this meeting this evening is to talk about planning efforts for the Hodiamont Greenway along the Hodiamont tracks. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time sharing who Great Rivers Greenway is and what we do. We'll then introduce the project and the project team. I want to make sure that we share a little bit of history about how we got here and where we are now. For those who don't know about all the extensive work that's happened over the past several years on this project. And then, so the project managers are going to provide an overview of the design plans so far, and then we'll talk about next steps and open the floor for questions. But first, before we get too far into this program, I want to shout out a few words of thanks. This project really would not be possible without our partners at the City of St. Louis, including the Parks Department, the Forestry Department, the Refuse Department, the Board of Public Service, and the Planning and Design Agency. I think I've got pretty much all of them. And I especially want to thank our wonderful 10th Ward Alderman Shamim Clark Hubbard for her support, for her leadership in this process. We really appreciate you for all that you do. I also want to thank the teams from Vector Communications, DTLS, WSP, Cavindio Engineering, H2 Lighting and Design, Hines Inc., M3, EDSI. And then we've got a host of other community partners and community leaders and neighborhood associations and neighbors. The Community Advisory Committee. We had a Community Advisory Committee on this project, which represented all 7 of the neighborhoods that the Hodiamont Tracks intersects. We want to thank you for championing the voice of the community. And we thank you for all of your support and participation in this planning process over the last 7 years. So thank you so much. Okay, with that, let's get to the actual agenda. So Great Rivers Greenway, we are a public agency that plans, designs, and builds greenways. Our mission is to make the St. Louis region a more vibrant place to live, work, and play by developing a regional network of greenways. This regional network includes 3 counties, which is St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. We have 19 active greenways, including the Hodiamont Greenway, which we will just claim that now, and more than 135 miles of trails to explore in the 3-county region. So about the Hodiamont Tracks, the Hodiamont Track spans 3.5 miles, intersects 7 St. Louis City neighborhoods, 3 wards, including wards 10, 11, and 12. And once built, the Hodiamont Greenway will connect 2 other greenways. So they'll connect with the St. Vincent Greenway, which currently travels through the Ruth Porter Mall. And then the Brickline Greenway, which is coming soon, which will be built along Spring Avenue, where the Hodiamont Greenway will terminate on the east end. And this is your project team for this planning effort. So the project team includes Kalia Bruce, who's the lead project manager for Great Rivers Greenway. Kalia is supported by Gil Thomas, who is also a project manager for GRG. I serve as the civic engagement manager for this project. We are fortunate to have the opportunity to work with DTLS's Matt Snelling, who's the design lead, as well as an elite team of engagement professionals, Darby Latham and James White. And we are the team spearheading this effort. So together, we're the group that's really working to make certain that we have the opportunity to come to you tonight and at all of our activities to make sure that you're involved. You'll likely see us out and about and in the neighborhood from time to time as we continue to work on plans for the Hodiamont Greenway and as we continue to engage the community around this project. So if you see any of us, be sure to say hey. Little context and history about the Hodiamont Tracks and how this project came to be. So the Hodiamont Tracks have been an important transportation corridor between St. Louis and Florissant, and they've been used in many ways since the 1850s. It was the first path for horse-drawn transportation until the late 1880s when it became a cable car line. It eventually evolved into an electric streetcar line, which operated for more than 70 years. And this was the last streetcar line service in St. Louis City. And in the mid 1960s, the corridor was used as a bus line and was operated by Bi-State for Metro bus service until 2009. And since then, the corridor has largely been used as an alley with different uses depending on where you are on the tracks. So Bi-State still owns a large portion of the Hodiamont tracks. Other owners of the tracks include the City of St. Louis, LCRA. There's a small segment in Academy Sherman Park neighborhood that is owned by the St. Louis Public School System. But those are the current owners of the tracks. The vision to transform the Hodiamont Tracks from an alley to a usable corridor started around 2018, a little before that actually, when GRG was approached by the city and community leaders to initiate a plan for new use for the Hodiamont Tracks. Again, Bi-State had by then had abandoned it as a bus line, so it was just largely being used as an alley. So this project started for us with engagement and listening. We did a listening campaign for a year to understand the community's priorities and desire for a greenway or what use along the Hodiamont tracks. And following that year of just listening and polling the community, an overwhelming 95% of those engaged said they would like to see a greenway on the Hodiamont tracks. So that's when we really started the work of figuring out how we could, is this feasible and how could we make this work? Over the years, engagement has included lots of things like tabling, presentations at neighborhood meetings, events, door-to-door engagement. We had, again, that community advisory committee made up representatives from each of the 7 neighborhoods. And they were really essential in helping us guide or helping guide the project team and the design team. That CAC set a set of goals and priorities for the project, which are on the right hand of the screen. So you'll see those and you'll see how these show up in every aspect of design when we're working. We want to make sure that we're continuing on the voice of what the community has told us they want this project to be. So from prioritizing the tracks as a critical space for development to developing a set of community-based goals to inspire design to giving this project a name. So we appreciate all of you who voted for the name of this project. The community has really driven the design for the Hodiamont Greenway. Again, after hundreds of meetings and events and new relationships and community partnerships, this is how we got here to this point today. And where are we? So we've worked with community to draft the conceptual design plans. That was in, oh Matt, I'm going to get this wrong. That was a couple years ago. So I'll say 2022, 23.
23.
23. And so we've got that conceptual design plan and we're working to advance the plan along the 3.5 miles. But there are a couple of projects in particular that we're able to focus on because we are going to implement this project, the 3.5 miles, in phases. So we have 2 phases that are currently underway. And those phases include this first phase, Gwen Giles Park at Hodiamont Ave in the West End neighborhood. Design for this project was completed this spring and will go into construction this fall. But to share more about this segment, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Project Manager Kalia Bruce.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So the first phase that will be constructed is the phase at the segment at Gwen Giles Park, which is at the intersection of Hodiamont Avenue and the Hodiamont tracks. And you see here on the screen is a little bit of what improvements we will be making to the park. We are starting here because the city is also doing a cycle track along Hodiamont Avenue, and it'll be on the west side or the north side, depending on where you are on the street. And so we're going to connect to that cycle track. So that was a big component of why we wanted to start here. The other reason is because this is a city-owned park. And so GRG, when we build and design greenways, we typically try to operate in what is called the right of way, but it is municipality owned property. And so the park is owned by the city and gives us the rights to modify and develop that area, that land. And as you can see here, so some of the improvements include a uh, designed crossing uh, for pedestrian and trail users to connect to the cycle track. So we have worked with Alderperson Shameen to install stop signs at this intersection. Um, we did understand from the community that there is some higher speed traffic in this area, and so we've been working with the community and the Alderperson to install those stop signs. Um, Within the design, DTLS is also the designer on this phase as well. And so they've also included some parking in this area, some uh, low plantings, signage. We were able to work with Cornerstone CDC. They acquired a grant for this segment. And so we were able to add a pavilion. Um, and then some of the other amenities would include bike fix-it station, drinking fountain, bottle fill station. And then also we were fortunate enough on this segment to be able to incorporate a little bit of art and color. So those are the some of the those panels that you see there with the kind of graphic art that's on there. In addition to the pavilion, we're gonna be working with the St. Louis Chess Club in Central West End. They're gonna provide tables with chess chess boards on them. There's donating those, and then they'll also help to program the space, so teaching chess in this location. We'll also have waste receptacles. We're working with the Parks Department to incorporate a couple of grills. Um, and then you see there are also some bike parking areas. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we will also be installing some, uh, well, there's already an existing cycle walking path that goes around the park. And so we will be enhancing that so that it's unified and connected to the Greenway.
I'm just going to go back real quickly and see if I can.
Oh, if you stop there, actually,
Yeah.
and I know I've had a couple questions about this because during our design process, we um, discovered that there was an area just to the south of the Hodiamont tracks that is actually owned by the city. And so we worked with the city forestry to remove, yes, right there where Shaughnessy is showing her cursor. We worked with the city forestry department to get rid of the fence that separated that area. It kind of had gotten overgrown because I don't think some people didn't realize whose it was to take care of. And so we will actually be expanding the park into that area, and that'll now be incorporated in the park. So we did clear that out. And I know some people have had some comments about, oh, you guys did the clearing, but we don't know what's happening, like no other activity has happened. And so I wanted to explain that a little bit. Because of um, bird species and natural habitats, there is some work that has to be done outside of their migratory season. And so some of these trees that were in that area were considered habitats for birds. And so we had to remove those trees during a certain time of the year. And that is why that tree removal happened back in the winter, very early spring, when those birds were not in those trees. And so um, we did not have access to the land at that time. And so we just worked with city forestry, who was already the maintenance partner in this area, to have those trees removed. So once we get into construction, then you'll see more activity happening in that area.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to put us back where we were. Um, and then, one quick note about the art. the art shown here. These are placeholders, so there will be some other actual art that's developed. But just wanted to note that we, again, as Kalia said, that it's definitely something that is incorporated into the project, and we'll be working on a process to identify what the art is and who the artist is.
And then I wanted to add one more thing. So I didn't speak to the colored dots that you see in a lot of these images. And as Shaughnessy mentioned, that everything we do is we try to make sure we're listening and then responding to your comments and your feedback. And so early on, which goes way back in the engagement life cycle, but we did some engagement and understood the priorities of the community, and that's what those dots are that you see down to the right, those community goals. So community and culture, socioeconomic growth, safety, security, access, health and wellness, and then enhanced environment. And so DCLS and Matt were um, great in trying to label some of the amenities that are addressing those comments. And so I just wanted to mention that. I forgot to mention that earlier, but when we were looking at this, but that is where those come from.
Thank you. And this is super exciting. It's exciting that after, 7+ years, we're finally getting to a point where this is happening. It's coming to life. We're going to see it very soon. You'll start to see construction happening soon. And again, all of these features, all of this was identified through community engagement efforts and through community feedback. And this all informed the amenities for this project. So, I'm probably going to say thank you a billion times. Thank you. We do appreciate all of the work that you all have done to bring this vision to life. Okay, and then the second and current phase of this project will be the segment of the tracks which travels from Goodfellow Boulevard to Belt Avenue. This is the segment that will intersect the St. Vincent Greenway. So you can see that St. Vincent runs from Forest Park and comes through the West End. So this will intersect St. Vincent Greenway. Um, this particular project is important because this is going to be a template for other segments to follow. So, and for all of you who are very familiar with the tracks, you know that the tracks change from one end to the other and they have different conditions. But for the condition where the tracks looks like just a single alleyway, this is going to set the precedent for what that looks like across all of the rest of the tracks with a similar condition. There's also going to be lots of different safety enhancements where the Greenway crosses streets. It's going to set the precedent for that as well and how those street crossings are handled. So I'm going to have Matt explain this segment more and talk about what some of those precedents are going to be. So Matt, you can take it away.
Thanks, Chauncey. I'm glad to be here on behalf of a much larger design team. Kind of shown here on this slide. Our company, DTLS, we're landscape architects and we're leading the design of the Greenway. WSP is leading our engineering efforts. And our diverse team includes several other consultants, each of whom specializes in a particular aspect of the project. Shaughnessy mentioned their names previously. This team has completed preliminary design for the entire 3.5-mile length, and now we're getting started into intermediate design for this segment that we're going to show on the next slide. Now I'm going to give a little tour of our project area. So this is an overview of the project area from above. North is up on our slide. The project area is highlighted by the yellow outline, and as Kulia and Shaughnessy mentioned, this segment will extend from the east side of Goodfellow to the east side of Belt, and it will include the street crossing at Belt. The Hodiamont Greenway will also intersect the St. Vincent Greenway at Ruth Porter Mall. That was something Shaughnessy highlighted earlier as well. And you can see it kind of in the middle of our screen here. So on the next slide, we transition from the real world to this model view of the project. And we're going to use this model to discuss that preliminary design as we go through the next few slides. Starting from the west, where the little arrow is. So you can skip to the next.
And while you're transitioning slides, Matt, I just want to clarify that the old Hodiamont streetcar / bus route is what's going to be used for the planned Greenway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Darby. So this view is standing, or we're hovering above Goodfellow and looking east. And those old Hodiamont tracks, the streetcar right-of-way you described, is the area between the yellow dashed lines here in the middle of our screen. So sorry, my dog's barking now. The project area is owned primarily in this area by the St. Louis Land Clearance for Redevelopment Authority, or LCRA. It also includes a little bit of city parkland and some public street right-of-way when we get to Belt. But there is no privately owned land included in this project. Some of the elements that you can see in this view are a 12 to 14 foot wide concrete pathway, which provides a smooth surface for people walking or riding bikes or using wheelchairs or strollers. Greenway amenities like benches, waste cans, and other furnishings are shown to the left side in this view. And the pathway is lined with landscaped areas and lighting. These are items that the community has indicated are important. And just to reiterate what Kulia was talking about, those community priorities are highlighted by those skittle-colored dots, each of which shows how each element relates to the community goals shown at the right-hand lower right corner. Moving on to the next slide, this view shows the intersection with the existing St. Vincent Greenway. St. Vincent connects to Forest Park on the south and to Trojan Park, Wellston, Pagedale, and St. Vincent County Park to the north. You'll notice that our project area expands quite a bit here in the center of our screen. This is an area that's located within Ruth Porter Mall, and north of the new Hodiamont Greenway on the left side of the screen, there's this area that could be a great place for additional greenway or park amenities that would add to and support the existing playground that's on the right-hand side of the screen. A little later in the presentation, Shaughnessy will explain how you can help determine what kind of features might work best here. And next slide brings us to the end of our tour, almost to the end of our tour, where we wrap up at Belt Avenue and cross Belt Avenue. We can just skip ahead to the next slide and look at this crossing in more detail. So this view is we've shifted our viewpoint. We're now looking northward along Belt Avenue. And overwhelmingly, the community has expressed that their #1 concern with this greenway is safety. So safety is the primary focus of the proposed improvements at this crossing. And some of those improvements include bold crosswalk markings and traffic signs to alert drivers to the presence of people in the crosswalk. And the crosswalk itself is raised. It's like an oversized speed hump. There's actually been, since this preliminary plan was developed, there have been some speed humps installed on Belt to the north and south of this location. Curb extensions or bump outs help to reduce the lane widths as you approach the crossing. And this encourages drivers to slow down, but it also reduces the crossing distance for people crossing the street. And it makes it easier for those folks to see around parked cars before they start out into the street. Special lighting will ensure that people using the greenway are clearly visible to drivers and create kind of a gateway or a festive entry point to the greenway at this location. Vehicle barriers or bollards are placed on the greenway to keep cars from driving on the path. So I'll end my portion with a look at our design schedule. Our team is starting the intermediate design phase now, and that will run through the end of the year. In the spring, we'll complete the final design as well as the permit process. And once the permits and approvals are in place, the project will be ready to go to bid. which we anticipate will happen next summer. So that wraps up my part of the presentation. Thanks everyone for your time this evening. I think we're pausing here to check the Q&A, so I'll turn it over to Darby.
Yes. And just a reminder, if you joined a little later in the meeting, we are entering questions and comments in the Q&A box. So again, that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen on your Zoom control bar. Find that Q&A box button, type in your question, and we will read it aloud. So we do have one question, Matt. Since the Hodiamont tracks will be used for the Greenway, how will that affect the adjacent homeowners' privacy and security?
So the Greenway will hopefully introduce lots of new users to this area, which we believe will decrease the amount of undesirable activities that currently happen on the tracks, like dumping and other illegal dumping and other activities. This next stage of the design process will help to determine things like what will happen with the existing fences along that area. But there is an existing fence that is on both sides of the tracks right of way through this stretch.
So speaking of fencing, we have another question. So the track area between Goodfellow Boulevard and Bell Avenue, as we know, has a chain link fence along both sides. Some of this fence is in decent shape, but some of the fence is not. Will all of the fencing be replaced or just the fencing that's in poor condition?
This one I will start, and then I'll hand it over to Kulia to follow up with. Our team was out actually last week looking at this area and noticed some of the same things that you did with regard to the condition of that fence. In some cases, there's a double fence. There's the chain link fence, and then a lot of homeowners along this stretch also have their own fence, several feet to the inside of their property line in some cases. In some cases, it's right against the existing chain link fence. We are assessing, in that walk, we noted that condition of the fence, but also some of the challenges that would come with removing the fence. It, in some cases, is right on the property lines, so that it would require a lot of agreements or easements with individual property owners to temporarily come into those properties to work on the fence. So, and there are a lot of technical challenges with how the demolition of the existing pavement would work as well. So right now it's not determined what will happen with that existing fence and to what extent it would be replaced. That's the design team perspective. I will let Kulia speak to the GRG perspective.
Yes. So Great Rivers Greenway also concurs. We are still investigating on what the best plan of action is to either address or leave in place the fence. It is a challenging conundrum or condition that we've encountered. The fence was put in place by State back when they were operating it. And so we're still trying to understand who owns the fence, if there's any easements already existing, and then also just what would be the best benefit for all. It does create some maintenance challenges having the fence there, but we want to be receptive and responsive also to the community's feedback. And so we definitely are sensitive to the privacy and the security that the fence provides. We don't want to take the fence down if we cannot put something back that's equal or better. Is typically what we would do. That's our typical practice. Is we don't want to remove anything unless we're going to replace it with something equal or better, unless it is requested by the community. So all that to say is that we're still looking into it. We're still investigating. We're still weighing the options and still listening. And so we hope to have more information to you as we continue through the design process of this phase.
Thanks, Kalia. Speaking of replacing things with something equal or better, we have another question. Will the existing vegetation on both sides of the planned Greenway area be removed and replaced with new vegetation / landscaping?
So
Do you want to take that?
most of the vegetation that you see along this area is on private property. So as I mentioned previously, our work is between the yellow lines here, which is on public property. So we don't have the ability to go in and remove that vegetation, in someone's backyard. So the vegetation that's shown on this view, this doesn't really reflect the reality of what's out there. It's much more dense on the outside of this yellow line than what's shown here. But the green areas between the yellow lines, that's new vegetation, that's new plantings that would be part of the greenway. And GRG will be responsible for maintaining that and maintaining that growth on the outside of the yellow line as it crosses the yellow line. So in other words, if there's a tree or weeds or whatever that are overhanging into the greenway area, then those would be pruned back along that yellow line. But there's really no way for GRG to maintain outside of the yellow line.
And Matt, can you just remind us really quickly? So this particular cross section is how many feet across currently, and then how wide is the greenway, just to give people perspective?
Yeah, in this area, it's boy, I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's going to be between 25 and 30 feet wide. And between the yellow lines there. And
And so,
then
yeah.
the greenway pathway itself is 12 or 14 feet. So it's about half of that width. And so the other half would be planted areas primarily.
Thanks.
And we have one last question before we move forward. A point of clarification, will the Hodiamont Greenway be open to only residents that live in the area, or is it open for everyone to use?
All of our greenways are public. They're open for everyone to use.
Yes, come one, come all. All right.
Okay.
In regard to those questions about vegetation, I'll just point out too, in this view, you can see the utility poles that line this corridor. So all up and down the tracks, there are overhead lines, electric lines, and internet and phone and those kinds of things. So that does create a challenge for planting new trees in this area. We don't want to plant large trees that will grow up and then interfere with those lines. So any tree plantings that we do would probably be, as we're looking at the view here, would be on the left side of the greenway or the north side. And they would be smaller understory trees, flowering trees, things like dogwoods and red buds and smaller species like that.
Mhm. Okay, I believe we have more in our presentation. Yes, so you guys continue to put your questions in the Q&A and we'll respond to them at our next break.
Thanks. I'm going to get us back on track. I just wanted to note, so if you all are familiar and if you use the St. Vincent Greenway, this is going back to the question about who is it for. Similar condition. It's for anyone to use. So, the folks who use St. Vincent Greenway will likely be close to the same folks that are using the Hodiamont Greenway. It's all open for everyone to enjoy. Okay, so went to design schedule. I want to thank both Kalia and Matt for your updates and the progress on the project. And talk a little bit about community engagement. So again, we've been engaging for more than 7 years. And it gets a little quiet sometimes, and then we come back. So we're back and we're re-engaging with neighbors, particularly those that are in the footprint between Goodfellow and Belt, because we want to hear from you all. We want to learn from you all. Also, we want to hear from neighbors in the West End generally, since you have two projects happening right now that are really flanking the West End. So we appreciate you, but we definitely need to hear from you. You may have gotten a knock on your door recently, or you may have seen us at a neighborhood association meeting. You may have received an email from me or from Darby. You might have seen a social media post. Um, you may have seen us at pop-up events. We were at the recent, this is us at the recent Cornerstone event in early August. We did a volunteer cleanup event on September 20th, so just a couple of weeks ago. We were on the tracks. Forestry came in and took away a lot of vegetation, and then volunteers came out and helped to clean that up. So hopefully you all saw some of that improvement. Um, we also launched an online survey a couple of weeks back. The survey is open now. It's going to be open through October 28th. There's a QR code here if you feel like scanning this. I should have said this one first so I could get you to scan. You can scan this, or you can also visit the Hodiamont Tracks website, which I will give you as well. But we need your input. We need you to take the survey. We need you to share your concerns. We need you to tell us what looks great and what you don't like. We need to hear all of that. So if you haven't taken the survey, please scan the QR code on the screen. I will just continue to hold this up for just a minute. If you have taken it, thank you. Appreciate you. Now tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell an associate, send it to your networks, and encourage them to take the survey also. We'd really appreciate your feedback. And then how can you get involved? So, as I mentioned, again, help us promote the survey. Open until October 28th. There's plenty of time. So tell as many people as you can in your neighborhoods so that we can make sure that we've got the input we need to move this design forward. On October 7th, West End is having their National Night Out event. I actually have a question to the group, so if somebody can put this in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to be at Frank Williamson Park on October 7th from 4 to 7. I heard last night at another meeting that there actually is still a night out event in Gwen Giles Park. If that is so, could somebody please drop that in the chat or in the Q&A? I would appreciate that. Anyway, if you plan to be at Frank Williamson Park, please stop by, say hello. Yeah, tell folks to stop by the table so I can be sure to continue giving people some information. And then also on the October 25th, GRG with Vector Communications, we're going to be hosting a fall festival event. It's going to be fun, family friendly. There's going to be music. Costumes are encouraged. If you like to, that sort of thing, you like to dress up. If you don't like to dress up and you have a pet, dress them up. There's going to be a pet parade. There will be prizes. So please come out, have some fun, learn about the project. That event's going to be, again, October 25th. That'll be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you are a vendor in your community, if you have a business, if you do a thing and want to participate in the event, please let us know. Drop your information for us so that we can get you brought in the fold and part of the event. Again, the event's going to be at Goodfellow on the tracks. We'll likely sort of, wind our way down the tracks a little bit towards St. Vincent. So we'll be able to put up tents and things. So if you have a business that you want to join this event, that would be fantastic. And then similar to this open house, we're going to have another open house event. That's going to be, once we hear from you, once we get your feedback, we're going to give all of that to Matt and the team. They're going to work their magic. They're going to update those renderings. So then we'll come back to you so that we can share what we heard and then show you how design plans were updated or how they've progressed as a result of what you told us. So again, your feedback is super, super, super important. It helps us move forward. So please submit information to us. Hopefully all of you have my email address. You can also email me or call me or text me. And I know that there are a few people on this call who know how to reach me. So again, we collect all that information. It goes to the design team, and the design team actually uses that information. So we want to make sure that we hear from you. There's a project page. I'm stalling because you see all these QR codes. There's a project page for this project. So if you go to greatriversgreenway.org/Hodiamont or snap this QR code here, you can learn about other segments of the Hodiamont Greenway. There's videos on that page. The full concept plan for the Hodiamont Greenway is on that page. So, oh, you can also sign up for email updates on that page. So you can go to that website, greatriversgreenway.org/Hodiamont for more information. And then this is just reiterating our schedule. So we've got the schedule that Matt just talked about. You know, our online survey is open now through October 28th. Our virtual open house is today. Our fall festival event, again, October 25th. Our online survey will close October 28th. So this is going to be our last push to get those last few surveys in before we close that survey. And then we send all that information over to the design team. We'll come back to you in sometime in at the beginning of the year for a second open house event so you can see the progress. And then one more thing that I wanted to mention to you all is, and I said it already, but I'm going to reiterate it, is that you may see members of the project team, the design team, you might see some of the engineers, the landscape architects out on the tracks. You might see them in the corridor from time to time. We were just there last Friday. I think Matt talked about that. We walked the corridor to assess existing conditions. So when we're out and about, we're uniformed, we have vests on, we're recognizable. If there's anything extensive going on, if there's any studies, or survey work, we will do our best to alert you ahead of time about any of that activity so that you can be aware. In case that we can't, at a minimum, again, we're always uniformed. We'll try to have yard signs out there where we are so that, if there's surveyors out there working, you'll be aware, hey, this is Great Rivers Greenway. They're in the corridor. They're just, trying to advance the plan. So I just wanted to make sure I said that out loud. So if you see us, you'll know who it is. And if you have concerns or questions or anything, we'll make sure that our contact information is on those signs. But again, you can always call or text me, or send information through our website. Trying to think of other ways, but we're always open and available to hear from you. So definitely shout out if you see something going on that doesn't seem right. All right. Really quick, I'm going to talk about next step and future phases. I can tell you that we are actively pursuing grants and other opportunities to fund other segments of the Hodiamont Greenway so that we continue implementation of this project. So again, we've got those two projects that are happening now that are sort of bookending the West End, but we're looking for those opportunities to be able to start filling in gaps, but also further move down the tracks. This is a long-term effort. It's been long-term because we've been working at this through engagement for at least 7 years and planning and design. But we're going to continue to work with our partners at the city, at Bi-State, and others to continue to move this project forward. So just be on the lookout for more news and information about upcoming segments. And with that, I'm going to push us back to Q&A to see if you have any additional questions. Again, use your Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and just click on the dialog box there to type. Vector is going to continue to facilitate those questions.
Correct.
Do you have any? And if there's anything we don't have the answer to, because being completely transparent, Great Rivers Greenway doesn't always have the answers. We don't always know. And you guys are the experts. You're the experts in your community. But if there's something that we don't know, we'll put it in a parking lot, and I will be certain to respond back to all of you who've registered for this open house in writing so that you'll have the response, okay? So, questions?
Well, Shaughnessy, I will let you know that the neighborhood improvement specialist confirmed that there is a night out registered for Gwen Giles Park.
How
Uh,
can I be in two places at one time? That's the next question. All right, fantastic. That's good to know.
I would say it's registered, but she didn't have a flyer. So if anyone has a flyer or anything like that,
Yeah,
share with
that
us.
would be great. I'll figure out if I can hop. Maybe I can do both somehow, because I would really hate to miss all of these wonderful neighbors from the West End. Any other questions in the chat or information in the chat?
We got some people typing some questions. We'll
Okay.
let it
We'll
flesh.
hold. Oh, I don't like blank space. Let's see, what else can we?
Feel free to sing us a tune while we get these questions in order. Okay, is the construction plan for the Hodiamont Greenway intended to be built in continuous sections east to west? I'm sorry, west to east.
I can take that one if you guys can hear me. Sorry, I had some
Yeah, we can
technical
hear you.
problems. So we are, when I was speaking about earlier is where we chose to start was at Gwen Giles Park because of the ownership with the city of St. Louis. The ownership along the full segment, or I'm sorry, the full length of the Hodiamont tracks varies, as Shaughnessy was mentioning. So some of it is owned by State, some of it is owned by LCRA, some of it is owned by the city, and then some of it, a small portion of it is owned by St. Louis Public Schools. The agreement that we've been able to put in place is standing and is with the city of St. Louis, and so that includes the park area. So those are the areas that we are able to affect or make modifications to as of right now. We are still working on an agreement with Bi-State and or the St. Louis Public Schools. Um, LCRA is kind of adjacent to the city. So those areas are up for, I guess if you could say it, like up for grabs, but areas of opportunities where we can start building. So we will not be building in a continuous segment or in a linear fashion. We will be kind of hopping around to the areas, as of right now, to the areas that we have access to with the partnership with the city. So that's why we started at Gwen Giles Park because that portion is owned by the city and or LCRA, and that's the land bank in St. Louis. Sorry for using the acronym. Then the next segment that is owned by the city and or the land bank is the area at between Goodfellow and Belt that connects to the St. Vincent Greenway. Once we get agreements in place, we will then consider moving to other areas with other partners.
And then those other areas may not also just follow in a linear fashion, right? They may be in different places depending on other projects that might be occurring in those areas. So if there's an opportunity to partner with, say, the city of St. Louis, because they have a project happening at a cross street or something like that, and it makes sense to um, uh, capitalize on that activity and pool resources and even pursue grants as a result of that combined activity, that would be a reason to build in that location rather than just say starting from west and moving east or vice versa.
Thank you, Matt. I did forget to mention that part too. Yes. Grant funding is also a big component of this as well.
Awesome. Shaughnessy and GRG team, you got to thank you for all of your consistent work. On behalf of the May 16th storm victims and survivors, they really appreciate being informed and involved.
Thank you. Thank you all for, your continued your resilience. We've seen a lot of things in 7 years, what we saw in May, but you all are still here, and we thank you for being willing to even participate in this when there are so many things going on. I hope that the Greenway can eventually be a catalyst for for the city, but for your neighborhoods as well, as we continue to heal from that horrific tornado.
Definitely. The questions have slowed down a bit in the Q&A, but we are scheduled to be here till 6:30. Um, so yes, for those who have stayed with us throughout the presentation, thank you so much. Shaughnessy, I'll let you do your sign off.
All right, okay. Well, I want to thank you all for your time this evening and again for all of your input, the work you've contributed to this project since 2018 or earlier for many of you. It's been awesome to continue to work with the community on this project and bring it to a reality. And again, as mentioned, we got plenty of opportunities for engagement and input input on design for these segments. This team, the team that was introduced, we are all here for you. Again, if you see us in the community, feel free to just, come out and say, hey, it's this relationship. This relationship is what's going to get this project done. So we appreciate seeing you all out in the field, working with you. We appreciate you volunteering to your time to be working with us on getting the future segments done for this project. Just be on the lookout for opportunities again by registering for this event. If we didn't have your email before, we do have it now, and we'll be sure to keep you informed. Or you can sign up for project updates at greatriversgreenway.org/Hodiamont. And yeah, thank you again for your participation. We hope to see you out in the field soon. Anybody else? Closing comments, remarks? I think we're good.